talking of sort of strange old men, President Biden and Donald Trump,
the old folks
as
home
well as
seemingly
brokering a peace agreement in the Middle East. They are sort of they're switching roles next week, coming up on Monday, and President Biden has been putting out. I really wish they would. He's been putting out executive orders that presumably the new president will then overturn 3 days later.
So I haven't heard anything about this. What are the executive orders?
The one that I'm interested in, was it today? It was yesterday. He's put out a cybersecurity executive order. And this is quite...
We have lots of them. It's understandable how you missed it.
Yeah.
It doesn't alert you on TikTok, for example. But it's just as cringy.
These things come out all the time. This one's quite interesting in that he's saying, and he's right, and it was also a poke at Donald Trump and Russia and all of this world that we're living in. And he is saying the issue we've had is, we've been saying for years that all companies, especially if they get federal funding, need to meet these criteria for cybersecurity. And they basically said it hasn't worked. We keep getting, we could go into all of the break-ins just this year, some really serious ones. And so it's not working. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to insist that you prove that you've met all of these undertakings that you say that you have. And that's the executive order, which is kind of a slightly strange admission of failure of the sort of American way of doing things, So now they're getting a little bit stronger. I imagine Donald Trump will immediately rescind that because it goes against... But then he may have difficulty rescinding it because then it looks like he's loosening things up. Who knows what on earth's going to happen? But
I don't try and predict him. I predict other things in life, like vulnerabilities. I do some vulnerability forecasting, but predicting what U.S. presidents are going to do, I'm out. I'll tap out.
What tweet he's read that morning. But in terms of this whole approach, I mean, the president of the United States is basically saying, the federal government's approach hasn't worked. We're now going to have to mandate it, and you're going to have to prove that you've hit this. And my question would be, I suppose, why aren't these companies doing it? Or are they, and the US government suspects that they're not, or are they not reaching these security standards that which they agree to? What's going on? Do you have any insight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mixture of a lot of things, right? What do I mean by that? So, these companies, they write software. The software has vulnerabilities. Academically, scientifically, have we figured out to write vulnerability-free software yet? I think everyone knows that's not true. You don't have to be an academic. It's impossible to write code that's completely secure. So what do we have to do? We have to manage the vulnerabilities that are out there. Well, guess what? There's more and more every year. We have a backlog of vulnerabilities that we're publishing. And that's the big companies, the small companies, everybody. So some companies we think have figured out certain types of vulnerabilities and they're like on the decline and they're fixing it and kind of learning their lessons. But they definitely have new types of vulnerabilities that are emerging that they're still learning how to deal with and fight. So this how do we write completely secure code thing, no, we just can't do that. So we have to manage the problem. And I think that's more what the executive order is about. What can they do to manage this problem?
Well, like the UK government, you think, this is the right thing, but will it actually work? Will people actually do it? Will it actually impact? How do we get to a more secure place?
I know I'm gonna sound like old and fuddy-duddy and whatever, but incentives, right? There's no liability in software. If I write bad software and it's got vulnerabilities in it and you get hacked, I don't get charged money. And maybe we shouldn't have liability, but the effect is people don't fix a lot of this stuff as quickly as they could. There's also a difference between all the vulnerabilities that exist and the ones that get exploited. We think out of all the ones that exist, only about 4% get exploited. So how do we find that 4% rather than the rest of the 96% that's noise in advance?
So I'm just wondering, as someone who knows nothing about any of this and haven't even heard that this had happened, so politically, why do you think Trump would overturn this? What's his kind of, in Trump world,
because,
what would be the motivation?
Well, this is the impossible thing with this man who's about to become president of the United States, is that I can make cases for why he will strongly come out on both sides of it. He'll say this is anti-American, that the government shouldn't be dictating this, we must leave it open.
Okay, so it's too much government control.
Too much government.
Could be.
Or is it like the US is weak and hasn't been doing enough?
Oh, you're picking up on this whole manly thing that's on that side of the internet right now, which is another thing we should talk about.
Yeah, we should. I think also we have to acknowledge, forget their personalities. Like, this isn't necessarily just a Trump thing. It's almost like an American tradition. Right. New president comes in, overturns all the executive orders.
Everything before was terrible.
Right.
I'm here.
It's now
now it's good.
We're under fresh management. There's no more problems.
Nothing can be got through Congress. They do executive orders. It's pretty depressing.